new studio, but the time was definitely well spent getting ready for this moment to really kick off our official first live stream. We've done some other things in here, but before we get to the one painting I'm creating for you today, let's light that chat up. Let me know where you're watching from. So your city, your state, your country, so we can throw your comments on the screen or shout you out. And then also, if you have questions for me when I get into the painting, just anything about the art process to entrepreneurship, any questions about creativity, let me know in the comments. Do my best to answer those. And if I don't answer them today, I'll answer them on the next live stream. But let's get into today's first painting. Let's go. All right, let's go. Welcome to the new studio. I cannot wait to share more about this, but I will as we get into this painting. Start off over here. Now, as this painting comes to life, I'll share my process as much as I can, but again, use that chat to ask those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them today, if not on the next live stream. So if you are gonna be doing this painting, say along with me, hopefully you've prepped your image ahead of time, whether you've memorized it or sketched it out. Do what it takes to prep your image. How I'm gonna approach this painting today is I'm gonna start with my undertone using cool colors. So let's start building this off. Now this first layer of painting has gotta be as loose and free as possible. Imagine this is your architectural plan before you go build everything. This is giving you an idea of what it's supposed to look and feel like. And I think most artists really limit themselves during this process. I think that they try to get it so perfect right away, and they don't give themselves the chance to just be free. And unfortunately, the final image, the painting, reflects that. It feels a little tight, feels a little, less expressive when you can fully take advantage of this moment. Just be free. Now I try to do that too, like whether I'm performing on stage or I'm doing these live streams like this. Another technique you can use to help you create looser lines, something I do whether I'm drawing or painting, is I try to hold further back on my paintbrush so that I'm not limited to the movement of my wrists, but I'm actually maximizing the movement of my arm now, and I have full free motion. So today's subject, I've painted this one before, but as we're kicking off this new studio, as I try to use this time to really build on some new skills, it's like a artist going to the gym, doing these live streams. I picked a subject that is actually really challenging. I mean, this is a portrait that I think I've struggled with over the years for different reasons, but I want to take on the challenges now while we're in the studio, we're in a safe space, a few of you watching wherever you are in the world. Speaking of, let me know, where are you watching from? I would love to shout you out. So as I build this though, I'm already thinking about my light source, thinking about where are my midtones and shadows going to be casted. So you'll see a lot of my cool colors representing, my darker shades. So now it's to be assumed that the light source is coming from this area up there. So. Taking my time on this. Now, when I'm in the studio painting like this, maybe some of you have had the chance to see a live performance. I speed up this process. So I'm standing the same. I'm creating my brush strokes the same. When I'm live on stage, all I'm doing is just doing this, but just moving faster. If you were to study performance painting and just trying it on your own, Don't try to do it fast at first. Take your time, learn the techniques slow, and then the test is, all right, now how fast can I speed this up? And learn on a subject or an image of a portrait that's something that you can really do over and over again. My very first portrait I ever learned in my dad's garage, because that was my original studio, was Jimi Hendrix. And it was a profile of Jimi Hendrix, and the reason why I chose that was Denny Dent. So Denny Dent, who started performance painting, one of the first paintings that I ever saw from him, I was at a friend's house, and I looked across the room, and there was this massive painting on the wall. When I went up close, it was just splattered paint, and then when I stepped back, it was this incredible, distinctive portrait of Jimi Hendrix, and it was a profile portrait. So that was the first painting I wanted to learn. I was inspired by it. Now, over the years, it has been a foundational test. So I keep doing that portrait to see how do I evolve one portrait with new skills. I'm sharing this with you because I want you to find that portrait for you. Whether you're doing performance painting, whether you're just drawing or some other medium, find a subject that you can test your growth. And the more that you do it over time, hopefully, in your eyes and your judgment, it continues to get better. Now I started with the purple, I'm gonna step up to the blue. Again, I'm just being very, very loose. Like I'm not even trying to fill in the entire space. There's a lot of black canvas still showing through. We can do all the details later. Like I'm not worried about perfection right now. We'll tighten it up later. Don't hold yourself back. Don't keep yourself from experiencing a little bit of freedom, actually a lot of freedom in your process. So I know some of you have joined the live chat right now. We also had some people sending questions before we started this live stream. And so I'm gonna start answering those first. So Joe, you can't see Joe. We got to get a camera on Joe soon. But Joe, what's one of the first questions that we had that someone sent to me on Twitter?
What is it like to be famous and busy all the time?
That's an interesting question. So what is it like to be famous and busy all the time? Well, let me debunk the myth. I don't feel famous. I just feel like there's just a lot of new dynamics in life. But to answer that question a little more clearly, I think that when you become more well-known or famous based on doing something you love, you can create constantly, at least until you get burnt out. Hopefully you try to find some balance. But for me, I keep creating because I always feel inspired. And I always feel inspired because I started creating in a style and I started creating subject matters that I actually love and I actually enjoy it. So my advice to anyone just pursuing something at a high level. High level can translate into fame. It can translate into financial success. It can translate into influence. Maybe you don't have any of the other things, but your team and the people you have influence over, but focus on starting with something you actually enjoy. There's a reason why it seems cliche to say that. It's because it's absolutely true. The more and more that I go down this journey, I'm so glad, I'm so happy I took the risk, double down on one thing I enjoy and love, and I keep doing it. I feel inspired as the years go on. And I'll take it one step further. This portrait that I'm doing, I've done it too many times to count, but I'm doing it again because it's still an image that inspires me, and also I want to see how have I grown at this same image that I've been doing for a very long time. But great question. Thank you for asking that. Hopefully I answered it good enough for you.
David, are you always painting and drawing?
So great question. Thank you, Joe. So someone asked, am I always painting and drawing? No. Actually, I don't think I'm always painting and drawing. I definitely paint and draw as much as I have to. But if I get moments to be inspired by life or just live life, I go do that also. So I don't think that you find inspiration by just keeping your head down in the work that you're doing. You gotta look up and be inspired. So that gives you something to take back to your canvas. I try to find the balance in that. But I mean, if you locked me in a room for days, then I would definitely have no problem at all. I'd have no problem just sitting there drawing and painting all day. Great questions. Love that. All right, let's keep building this up. I wonder if there's any guesses. I know in the thumbnail for this, we did have some, to give away a little bit of what I'm painting today. Being like really light with this brush so that I can get colors in layers on top of the ones that are already there. I'm gonna take advantage of the black canvas too. A lot of people that get into this style of painting on the black canvas don't use the black canvas enough. Use that canvas. Let those shadows say what's here. Let it fill the space. You know, we call that using the negative space. And so take full advantage of that. Leave it behind.
So I got another question here.
Yes, what's that?
So this person's shooting a shot here.
Okay.
Could you help another inspiring artist launch a project as a partner?
Interesting. Okay, so someone asked, can I help another inspiring artist launch a project as a collaborator? It's a great question. Well, one, I would want to know, and actually let's step back. Artists wanting to collaborate with other artists. Not all collaborations are created equally. Anytime that I collaborate, I want to make sure that there's a few things or a handful of things in mind. The ones that come to mind right now are, can our audiences, even though they're different, can they complement each other? So think about that first. I'm going to ask you, like, who is your audience? Who are you appealing to? Is that someone that I think my audience can complement? Second is the other artists, how consistent are they? Because I know every day I'm showing up. I know I don't need to be told, hey, where's that thing that we're expecting from you? I'm going to show up. So I want to make sure that the artist that I'm collaborating with has the same work ethic and record as I do, or hopefully greater so I can learn from them. But just as long as we're close enough. I would say too, when you approach someone about a collaboration, come to them with some sort of idea or plan in mind. Don't just say, hey, I want to collaborate, think of it. Come with some ideas, maybe 2 or 3 different routes that this could go, or also where could the benefit to everyone go from there as well. So that's what I would consider if we were to do a collaboration together. I appreciate you shooting your shot. So send me a DM, maybe you can answer some of those questions for me. And then also artists out there that are looking to collaborate with other artists. I hope you're bringing something to the table that someone would be proud to collaborate with you. Great question. And send me a DM with all that info. And I've been blessed to do some really, really cool collaborations with people, everyone from Deadmau5 to Disney. I mean, we've done some really cool ones with some very interesting characters. But every time I ask myself those same things: how can we all win here? And what am I bringing to the table? So some of you watching this that have seen my past live streams, you may be asking yourself, where are you painting? Like, what is this room? This is the new studio. And I'm going to share more in details about it later on. But let me just say that I am super excited to just get back to these. Something about live streams, which is really creating, sharing, teaching, hitting all those elements. that's when I feel like I'm at my best, like I'm giving you my best, and hopefully it'll help you become your best as well. And that's what I think I'm most excited about, getting back to live streams. For some of you can guess this image, seeing it come to life. So I started with my cool colors. I'm now into the greens, the turquoises, where we're transitioning into the warm colors from here. I'm being
Dave,
very...
you got a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Doing this type of artwork, did you have an inspiration?
It's a great question. So doing this type of artwork, did I have an inspiration? I mean, one of my biggest inspirations was obviously Denny Dent. He started performance painting. He was the show. He wasn't the artist on the side of the concert. And so he would be the biggest, but I would say some other notable inspirations as an artist, I have to credit Justin Bua, who is a friend now. Justin documented hip-hop through the lens of fine art in a way that no one had ever done before. And me being someone who grew up loving hip-hop, creating, things in hip-hop from all the elements, he just represented it so well in such a high-level fine art style. So Justin Bua was a huge inspiration early on, still is. I would say some other inspirations, the obvious, Basquiat, Warhol, and I say those because I want to set high standards for myself and my art and my brand, and they showed what was possible at an extreme high level. And I hope that throughout my career, I can kind of look to those as, okay, where am I at? I get one life. This is it. And so with this little bit of time, how much can I create and get done in this short amount of time? And artists like that, Warhol, Basquiat, Bua, Denny Dent, they've set these high standards that I want to set for myself. And I'll end with this. Artists out there, don't think that, oh, they're doing that because that's them. No, one day they decided and said, I'm going to set a high standard for myself in quality of work and inspiration and output, all that stuff. You can do the same today. You can make a decision right now and say, I'm going to start setting higher standards for myself. And that may be just making sure you show up a little bit more day to day, making sure that you're creating or collaborating a little bit more, reaching out to people, putting your work out to the world. That's where it starts. And the snowball effect, the compound effect of you doing that is what turns you into a Warhol, Basquiat, a Bua, a Garibaldi, whoever you are. That's what's next. So this layer that I'm putting on right now, it's like a base. It's like an undertone. It's like we're gonna build on top of this. But artists, don't think that you're done creating once you do this first layer. And I'll get into this later on as we get to that part of it. But don't forget that you have to add your artistic voice on top of what you're putting on this canvas. Don't worry, I will explain all that means. Building this up, a little bit at a time. You know what, when you're doing this style of painting, don't be afraid to prepare. You know, I remember early on in my career, I would put my videos out and then people would comment, and I think they thought that this was gonna be like I showed him. They're like, yeah, he can do these paintings that fast because he must have done it like 100 times before. And they were absolutely right. I would rehearse and I practiced before I even showed up. I would prepare, because performing on stage, you're not just a visual artist now, you're a performing artist. And performing artists set high standards for preparation, which is what I wanted to do. So I say this because artists, even if you're a visual artist, prepare before you show up. Do studies of the image before you show up to the canvas to paint. Do whatever it takes. And don't feel bad about preparing or being prepared. Don't let anyone else make you feel bad about feeling and being prepared. All right, let me wash off these brushes. I don't want to grab new ones yet, but because I do like there's still some color mixing in with these, and I want that color to mix with the next layer. Again, I'm sure you guys can see who this is, who it's becoming. I said earlier, this is one of the most challenging portraits for many different reasons. One of them being is actually getting the skin tone just right. This person has a very, very unique skin tone, and it's not like something you can just kind of pour it out of a tube or get it pre-mixed for you. And so I thought, what if I have a challenge with the skin tone? Let's just take the skin tone out of it and let's use color, and let's approach this with considering the value, the light and shadow that builds up this portrait.
David, got a question.
Okay, hit me with it.
Could you talk about one of the most memorable moments while being an artist for you?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. So what are the most memorable moments being an artist? Ooh, there's a few memorable moments. I'll share some of those memorable moments while I'm painting. I think the very first memorable moment was I was living in Elk Grove, attending Sheldon High School. It was my senior year, and I had just started developing some more art that I felt like, I wanted to show it. So I went to Original Pete's Pizza that at the time was in Elk Grove, and I asked to talk to the manager, and I said, I'd like to show my artwork in your business. And I think they actually did have some art up, and I thought that I could approach them about that. So they're like, cool, can you come down with your portfolio? So I said, sure. So I went down there a few days later, brought my portfolio, and convinced them to do a showing. And so I thought that was just the beginning. I did the showing, I called the Elk Grove Citizen, or I called like some small local paper, and I was like, can you come cover my showing? They're like, great, what gallery is it at? I'm like, it's at Original Pete's Pizza. Like, that was a memorable moment because I realized, looking back on it, I was ready to hustle. Like, I was ready to just put my name out there. I didn't need things to be perfect or at the right gallery at the right time to start getting my work out to the world. So that was, I think, one of the first most memorable moments. Another one, still around that time, I got accepted to this arts program, the summer arts program called California Summer School for the Arts, and it was at Cal Arts, which is like a dream college at the time that I really wanted to go to, which I did not go to because I didn't graduate high school, which is another story for another day. But I got into that program, and for 30 days I got to be around other like-minded, high-level producing, high-standard teenagers that wanted to go into the arts. And when you surround yourself with people who think the same way, they have a huge, big vision for their life as well, that's inspiring to be around. And that changed, I think, my outlook about actually wanting to do this as a profession from that point on. And let me think of the third one. I know there's so many, but I want to share one that was really impactful on my journey. I think I would say, okay, here we go. The third most impactful moment on my art journey was the pandemic, and it forced me to start thinking about how I approach art in a new way. Because the only thing that was going to take me off the road from being a performer was an injury, God forbid, or a pandemic, which it did. And so it forced me to start thinking that new about how I share my art with the world, and it led me to doing these live streams. And the journey that these live streams had produced and could only do because I was now open to thinking new about how I can present my work, it changed my trajectory and journey after that. It changed our presence on social media. It changed our relationship, how I can communicate with other creators or just supporters out there. And so think about how tragic and traumatic that time was, but to have a view that it actually changed my life. It changed a lot of people around me as well, and for the better. And I wouldn't have changed it. And now us being in the studio is a result of taking that moment and saying, let's not give up. Let's not shy away from this. Let's take on this new challenge, and let's learn. Like, let's put ourselves through this moment, and we did, and literally we're here because of that. So. Love the questions. Again, if you have questions, ask them below in the chat. And if we don't answer them today, I'll answer them later on. I'm gonna add a little bit of white to this yellow. Get it a little bit lighter.
David, can you talk about your relationship with Kiss Camp while touring with them?
So can I talk about my relationship with Kiss? Yeah, I would love to. Well, those of you that may not know, in 2019, I went on tour with Kiss as their opener. And originally, it was just supposed to be 10 days. Now, how do we even get to that deal? Someone in Doc McGee's office, who is the legendary manager for the band, also managed Guns N' Roses, John Bon Jovi, Motley Crue. I mean, the guy is just a straight up legend. Someone in his office knew that they were looking for an opening act that was different. Like Metallica had a comedian on one of their stadium tours. And so they're like, we want to do something different. Like we can have any band, which they really could have any band open up for them. But someone in their office said, hey, there's this artist that paints live. He's pretty entertaining, but also, here's the also part that changed everything. He also is dedicated to raising money through his art. So, like, interesting. We also want to raise some money too. So, Doc called my agent, was like, hey, tell me about your guy. Just straight up like cold call him. And Ryan, my agent, started sharing about what I do, our charitable stuff. He's like, all right, well, let me present this to the band, and then we'll see what they think. So I thought nothing of it. Before you know it, 2.5 weeks before that tour started, I get on the phone with Doc McGee, and he's like, I'd love to have you come out to start this tour with us. First 10 dates. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. That's incredible. So I took them up on the offer, and we made it work. And didn't stop there. We started with the first 10 dates. We eventually did the rest of North America. We went to Europe, all over Europe. We came back to North America. And in total, we did like over 120 live shows with them all around the world. It was really incredible. And again, I attribute that to that charitable aspect, just, putting more intent and meaning behind the art. But I love these questions. Thank you for asking them.
David, what do you do with your used clothes?
Oh, great question. So what do I do with my used clothes? Well, I have a huge pile of dirty clothes everywhere. No, sometimes we auction them off. Sometimes they're, sometimes we just give them away. I have a lot of paint clothes. I'm constantly a mess. What should we do? Actually, let's do that. Besides the obvious, like, yeah, we could donate them to charity. What else could we do with all the clothes that I wear from live shows? Can you let us know in the chat? What should I do with these clothes? Maybe you have some better ideas than I do. I keep just stepping back, looking at this image, making sure that again, this is just the base. We're gonna add some more on top of this. Before we get to that, let's bring this to life. Smaller brushes over here. Bring this to life with these eyes. Now, when I do eyes, I've had to learn this as a hard lesson in the past, but not always just putting just white in the eyes, but we're gonna start with the shadow that is just under the fold of the eye. I'm sure there's someone that knows anatomy better than me, you know what it's called, but start with that. So I'm going to start with this dark gray, fill in most of the space. And we'll come back a little bit of gray where the color is supposed to be there. Now let's go back. We're going to mix it in with that white. So now it's a light gray. Get to the white. Sometimes there's not even white in the white of the eye. Sometimes there's shadow. So I'm always thinking about, especially when I think about the image that I'm referencing, does it call for white in the eye?
What is your favorite medium to do artwork on or in?
So what's my favorite medium to do artwork on or in? I have to say paint on canvas. I have other dream mediums, like one day I do want to do sculptures, not just like clay sculptures, but designing, 20 plus foot sculpture installations. I think that would be super fun. And, but right now, and I haven't gotten bored with it yet, maybe one day I will, but paint just continues to surprise me. Even this, you have an idea of where you want the paint to go, and it doesn't always go according to plan. And I love that. I love that it's unpredictable. That's not for everyone, but that's for me, and I enjoy that. As you can see, this Bob Marley portrait coming to life. I'm gonna start getting a little messy now. Get rid of those. Get some paint on my hands. You know what's funny is in my pocket, I have gloves that I never put on, that I was supposed to put on for this. Those shadows, folds. This has a really interesting, now I'm going to use the dark blue to give a little bit of texture to the dreads. Now, in the original image, the dreads are actually not showing, it's black, but this is my image now, and it's my art, and so I'm gonna decide that I'm gonna imagine that the dreads are just showing just a little bit. I'm gonna give them way too much. If you were to look close, maybe you can see it on the screen. Let me wash my hands real quick because we're gonna go back now with some of the lighter colors. I do kind of regret not wearing the gloves now. I'm going to regret it at some point later. All right. Get to the yellow, the green. Purple. Now, the reason why I like to use my fingers and hands on the portrait is because I can get a little bit more contouring on the portrait, which I can't always do with the brushes. I also get a texture on here that, again, you can't achieve with just brushes. Trying to get a little bit more surgical with the experience. Now we're gonna do that same thing, but with some cooler colors. So I've got the turquoise, the dark blue. There's places that I feel like I want to bring attention to. That's the other thing too, is when I add splatters or strokes of paint with my fingers, is it allows me to draw attention to areas in the portrait that I want the viewer to see. Just a little bit of touch. Now let's mix in some water with this. Throw it back. Again, I'm thinking about if I was on stage, what's the next step? What am I doing? And now on the live stream, I'm taking my time doing this, but if we were on stage, I'm saying out loud what I would normally be thinking. And I'm gonna move in a slower pace as if I was on stage, but I'm trying to think about it now so that later on it'll be more instinctive. Use that time to prepare. Now, we've got the portrait pretty dialed. We're gonna start working on the outside in the home stretch. Keep those hands messy. Let's move on. We're gonna go for this light blue. We're gonna start with the light blue. Now, there's a lot of texture when it comes to the dreads, and I wanna use the black of the canvas to give that feel for the texture. It's almost like I'm just dragging the brush along the canvas, leaving that texture behind. And then what we'll do is we'll cut in and we'll fill in some space, but you see all these little parts where the brush didn't hit? It looks like they're the small hairs on the edge of those dreads. Like a little visual magic trick. Man, please don't go for perfection right away when you're painting.
David,
Yes.
could you talk about some of the coolest people you got to meet that were famous?
Yeah, it's a great question. So real quick, before I answer that question, everyone show Joe some love in the comment section. I know you can't see him, you can hear his voice. He's relaying your questions to me, but thank you, Joe, for that question. So show Joe some love in the comments. So what was the question again? What were some of the coolest people that I met? Some of the coolest people?
Yes.
Man, some of the coolest people, oh man, there's so many. I would say Drake was one of them. That was a pretty cool one. French Montana, also a pretty cool one. Man, who else? Man, there's so many. Diddy, we'll hit all the hip hop ones first. Diddy, Puff, whatever you call him. He was also, met him a bunch of different times. Man, Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, while he was president at the White House, that was pretty cool. Who else? Oh, Josh Groban. Josh Groban was a freaking man. Like, that guy, literally an angel of a voice, angel of a person. Like, he was such a cool guy. He actually picked out some wine from my dressing room when we did his shows at Radio City Music Hall. That was very sweet of him. Oh man, Sting. Sting was another one. I met him backstage in Paris. We were performing at the same show, and he was practicing his lyrics before the show. He was kind of just going over his music. And my tour manager at the time, Dave, he's like, I'm gonna go say hi. I was like, don't do that. He's like, I'm gonna do it. So he goes and says hi to him, and what Dave said to Sting was, hey man, our time's getting tough and you gotta iron the band's clothes. And I was like, oh my God. But he laughed. Thought it was hilarious. Yeah, Sting was cool. Dave, and shout out to Dave. He was funny. I'll say this. I won't share exactly who it is now, but we got some really fun shows coming up in the very near future. We'll say some more cool people to meet. You know, everyone that we end up meeting, though, I would say 99% of them are like super cool. There's some that, like, you know, they're famous. They got a lot going on. They have people that want to talk to them, but there are some that are just really cool people. All right, I'm gonna switch these brushes because they're getting way too much of a color I don't want, and it's gonna take too long to wash them out. Again, I'm talking out loud how I would be thinking this while I'm painting on stage. I'm just gonna switch over to back to this blue. If you notice, I used some pink on the border of this because I wanted to draw attention to the fact that it's separating from the background. We're separating the portrait, and I needed a color that had not been used anywhere on this portrait that would help me do that. Forgot to mention, those of you interested in this art, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, on Twitter, wherever you follow me. Send me a DM, just say, hey, I would love some info about that Bob Marley portrait. Or if you're interested in prints of it, still send me a DM. Maybe you can let us know before we think about putting it out. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Let me do one last thing before we actually get to the very end of this. We're gonna throw some paint around, because I wanna add just a little bit of light around the rim of the portrait. So I'm gonna go to my white paint, go to this white, and imagine if we were at a photo shoot, there's these lights behind us casting a hairline light right behind us. And I'm just gonna do it lightly so I can still maintain the texture of the dreads. But from afar, even from where you're watching this, it's just one of those little details that's gonna make it feel like a portrait, not just a face on a canvas, not just paint together, but something from real life that I've tried to observe in photos or in real situations. And this is why I tell you, go be inspired. Go watch film, go look at photography. It'll help you think about your portraits. You start to think, man, how do I get that look that photographer was doing in my painting, in my art? Then you can go on YouTube, and that photographer probably has a tutorial, or someone has a tutorial about how to light that scene, how to help your subject stand out, or give it that mood, or even color palettes. I mean, there's so much to this beyond just getting paint on a canvas. Right. All right, the fun part now, let's throw some paint. Let's go back to that pink. We got the paint on the hand. We're gonna water it down. Ooh, that was perfect. Now, I'm gonna throw a color on there that's not already there, but it's part of the skin tone that I was so afraid of to use on this. It's close to what his skin tone is. Again, I've got the paint on my hand. Go to the water it down. Actually, I'm gonna mix this in now. All right, there's no other way to end this rather than doing one last handprint, so let's do it. here. All right. Thank you so much for watching Paint Life Live. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to do some goodbyes. But again, welcome to this new studio. I can't wait to spend more time with you on these live streams doing this. But take one last look at this painting, and I'll see you in a bit. Yep. I think you're on the last scene, right?